Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Retrospective, where Peter and I discuss all things engineering leadership. And as always, I have Peter here with me.
Hey everyone.
And Peter, as we do these episodes, we take turns talking about topics. And this week it's your turn, so tell me a little bit about the topic that you want us to talk about today.
Yeah, I think this is something that's very topical. A lot of friends and colleagues talk about this. The question is, should engineering managers code? If you look at the job market, you see almost all the EM positions, especially line managers, but even on higher levels, they require some hands-on coding or some kind of hands-on technical contributions. I guess you can say this is the result of the high-pressure era of the wartime mode, if you will, where companies are forced to be more efficient. They are looking at performance, they are looking at efficiency. And one of the solutions a lot of companies are implementing is cutting some hierarchy and making managers code, sometimes again, because that used to be the case a long time ago. And the other reason for this era is AI getting popular, or LLM-assisted coding, where they are trying to set up organizations with less junior developers, more senior developers who are utilizing the help of LLMs. And the assumption is that the more senior an engineer is, the less management they need, because they are already senior, they know what to do. I don't really agree with this part, but this is still happening in the world. So all these point to the directions that, yeah, actually maybe engineering managers should code. So I thought this is a good topic to discuss. Maybe there's going to be something we can even disagree in. And yeah, I'm very curious of your opinion.
I definitely see this trend. When we were in the high growth, money was free era, and kind of like in that startup bubble, or I think I would call it like the VC bubble of like endless free money. Managers were definitely a critical part of hiring and growing and scaling. And so they spent a lot of time doing that. Whereas now we're in the post-zero interest period where there is no free money. You need to perform. It's all about results. And now the focus for managers, as you call it, it's this wartime mode where it's about delivery and results. And now we're saying everyone needs to code. And I wonder also, Peter, if you think that part of what's driving this is this idea that if a manager is coding, then I have an extra developer, I have an extra productivity in the organization.
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's behind it also. And I understand it to some extent. Like, it's really hard to lead a company these days, especially if you didn't make it too profitable yet. And you have a runway and you're watching it like every week, how it's getting closer. Justifying a role that doesn't have immediate impact and immediate contribution, it's really hard. I can empathize with that. I can really, really feel the pain that CTOs must have in this period when they would advocate for a hands-off engineering manager.
Yeah. But maybe it's worth then talking about what we think the role of an engineering manager is first, because I think that's a good way to like level set as we go into this as our lens of what we see that managers.
Yeah, I agree. And I will connect it to my point that I don't think engineering managers should code, but that should be the outcome of what I'm about to explain. So I think an engineering manager has three main areas where they can create value for a company. The first and arguably the most important is being responsible for the execution in the team to make sure that the team is delivering outcomes that are aligned with business goals. There's a lot to unpack here, but what I'm trying to say is that the EM is responsible for the outcome of the team, from the technical outcome of the team. And this includes also inter-team connections, discussions with stakeholders, discussions with other functions, other teams, etc. So this is the first main leg. Like I just call it execution management, but there's a lot of stuff in it. The second big...
Just on that, I really like the way it's framed in a book about management called When They Win, You Win. And I'm trying to remember the name of the author, but I'll put
it in the show notes. Yeah.
But the way he articulates this is deliver a result in line with what the business needs.
Yeah. That's the easiest way to say it, yeah. And this is good because it avoids a lot of traps. Like, this is not about what you as an engineer thinks is a good result. This is not like, yeah, a lot of decisions can be extrapolated from this statement. But that's one main leg. The second main leg, or the main area where an engineering manager can provide value, is just paying attention to team health, building up and sustaining a healthy, high-performing team. There are a lot of responsibilities and processes within this. It can be about ceremonies, it can be about work distribution, it can be about a lot of stuff, but this is about team health. And the third one is the personal development of the individuals within the manager's team, helping them to grow in their role, to help them set goals, to hold them accountable, give them support. Just pay attention to the personal development. So this team execution, team health, personal level, I think these are the three main areas. If you think about everything that belongs to these areas and the potential positive impact this can have on the business at the end of the day, I just don't think that coding can compare to that. I think doing a good job on these three areas most of the time is a full-time job. It requires your full attention. You're still going to have to make a lot of compromises and not pay as much attention as you would like to some areas. But if you bring in coding to the mix, my point simply is that the three main areas are going to suffer.
Yeah. I'm not sure I fully agree with that, because I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I just think what we're talking about is the primary objective as an engineering manager are these things, as you say, the three things. But if there's space for you to code as well, I think it's not mutually exclusive. But I think the view that we're coming at is, if you don't deliver those things, it doesn't matter how much coding you do, you're failing.
That's a good point. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for framing it like this. And there's another framing. I've worked a lot with first-time engineering managers and developers who became managers. In fact, this is what I'm doing now professionally. And a frequent pattern is that when times are becoming more chaotic, when pressure is increasing, I often see them pulling back and increasing their technical output. If there are some delays in delivery, instead of looking at why the team is not functioning optimally, who might need some mentorship, what could I do to optimize the processes to make sure that we can keep on delivering? Instead, what they do is, okay, I'm just going to take a few tickets and implement so we can get through this delivery. And I think this is a fallacy. I think people who do this, they choose this because they are more comfortable in technical contributions. And I don't think this is helpful for their career or the company. So I might be a bit biased because a more experienced, more senior engineering manager can better judge if they have time for coding or not and what value it creates and where they are needed. But I would say that if you're early in the engineering manager career, try to play down a bit your coding contributions because you have a lot to grow in other areas.
Yeah. I think there's a few ways to frame it. There's definitely one. And, if you're a junior manager, maybe you need to spend more of your time just doing this completely new job because it's a significant shift. And so you need to spend more time just learning these things. I think the other kind of scale on how much hands-on coding you can do is basically the size of the team that you manage.
That's a good point.
Because I think if you're managing a small team, 2, 3, maybe 4 people, you could actually have some bandwidth to write code, significant bandwidth in some cases, depending on the overhead of the organization and so on. As you get to like 6, 7, 8, I think it becomes almost impossible to be writing code at the same time. I think really you're basically full-time making the team work at that point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And thanks for expanding the perspective to include all kinds of organizations and teams. You're totally right. If it's a team of 2, 3, 4 people, then I can definitely see, especially an experienced engineering manager, to code more. And I think This is a good point where I answered the question in the episode. Like, I don't think engineering managers should code, but I definitely think that they should be technical. And there is a big difference between coding and being technical. Let me just argue a bit about what I mean by being technical, or the benefits of being technical. And what I mean by technical is somebody who used to be a developer, somebody who used to, I don't know, work in DevOps or anything, like who has an engineering understanding, who can read code, who can write code, who can understand architecture, create architecture also, but is not practicing these anymore, or not to the level of a developer. But if an engineering manager has this background and they are technical, then it just enables them to be much more efficient in the areas that really matter, according to my beliefs, the three legs that I was talking about. Like, if you're technical, you can build and maintain trust with engineers in your team much easier. This whole question of having to build trust without understanding their day-to-day problems, without really understanding their work, just goes away. And you're starting from a higher level already. It's building better mentorship context also. Like, if somebody on your team is struggling with something that's technical, you can just jump in and help them. You can also better understand the technical challenges and all the tooling challenges they are struggling with. You can make better technical decisions if you're technical also. You can represent the team better in technical discussions with other teams or non-technical stakeholders. Like, if there is a product discussion, you don't need to involve an experienced developer from the team. You can represent the team technically also. And I would say that's also an advantage, is that if you remain technical, or if you're technical as an engineering manager, you have much more career options in the future. We see today that the role of an engineering manager, even the role of a developer, is shifting every day. If you have just, more irons in the fire, I don't know if this expression works in English or not. I took it from Hungarian, but if you have
at
more
least we have the
options.
same expression in English and Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So then you just have more
Yeah.
options, and you can see if if you have enough of management, you can continue. So I think a good solution is some kind of middle ground approach. Like, engineering managers, I think they should be technical. I don't think they should be coding. What do you think about that statement?
I'm not subscribing as strongly to the statement that you made saying they shouldn't code, because I don't agree with that. But I do think that they need to be technical, because what we see, and I think there's been some research on this, maybe I'll try and dig it up and put it in the show notes, is the number one requirement that people have for their manager is their manager understands their work and the work they need to do. And if a manager does not understand what the team and how the team need to work, they cannot set the standard for performance in the team. And then they cannot make sure that things are being done in the right way. They'll mainly focus on the people and the behavioral aspects, which is an important part of the team. But I think that they will miss the standard of setting. It doesn't mean they have to do it. Like, I'm not saying they need to be the one setting it, but they need to be able to know what good looks like, and they need to be able to figure out and get it. And that for me is like the important part. And in some
I know we are
organizations,
arguing, because I want to interrupt you here,
go on.
because yes, I think a manager should be able to set good expectations technically, and they are accountable for that, but maybe they are not responsible. There are staff engineers in the team. There is a tech lead in the team. They can rely on the expertise of other people in the team and just get some help from that area.
That's what I'm saying. The manager is responsible for making sure that it happens. They don't necessarily need to be the one that does it. But,
okay, then we agree.
But in order to do that, you might need to be fairly technical to be able to do it. Now, that's different, though, because I think then on the coding part, I think that managers can code and be successful as managers. It's not mutually exclusive. And I think for me, it's much more of an it depends. Whereas I felt like you are coming from the perspective of generally they shouldn't.
Okay, no, I if you say it depends, I fully subscribe to that. I get my leadership career could be summarized in these two words, like, it depends. There are no silver bullets to and any questions. So yeah, sure, it depends, of course. And we agreed in the small team scenario already. All I'm saying is that my beliefs are strongest when I'm talking about first-time engineering managers coming from a developer background, where I advise them to dial down the coding contributions. I guess that's a softer way of saying
Yeah, because
what I believe.
the basic trap that first-time engineering managers who have been a developer in the team is they try and code at the same amount and they put far less attention on anything else. So I agree with that. And then it depends on the size of the team and all the rest.
And it's even worse. Like, there is the impact on the manager. They have less time and less focus on the more impactful areas. But also there's an impact on the team, because usually the engineering manager, most of the time or very often, is the most experienced technical person from the team who got promoted into an engineering manager. If they are keep on monopolizing the hardest challenges, the hard coding tasks, everything, it suffocates the team. It doesn't give enough opportunity to grow for the rest of the team. So I would say, if you're an engineering manager and you were a tech lead before, maybe, or staff engineer, you're doing a service to people, less experienced people on your team, if you leave them some problems to struggle with. So they don't get used to, I'm just going to ask the manager what to do here and he's going to tell me and we're done.
So I have two thoughts for this. Number one, the test for whether someone who comes from that background is a good fit for the manager. They need to show an aptitude for people, soft skills, and a desire to grow people in the team. And secondly, if they have that, if you're in a team, you've been the tech lead, now you're the manager, you may not be able to just drop coding immediately, but the way that you code needs to be about enabling other people and helping and unblocking and eventually removing yourself from being in the critical path of the delivery. And I think that's, we talk about a lot, but I think that the number one rule here is managers cannot be in the critical path for delivery if they're coding.
100% agree. Yeah. In fact, this is what I wanted to guide the discussion towards. Let's get concrete. Let's talk about what we suggest that in most scenarios engineering managers should avoid, and then we can brainstorm a few activities. So I listed a few. The first one, being on the critical path. That's something that's setting up for a catastrophe. Don't do that as an engineering manager. It can delay the team. It can rob them of the feeling of success and growth and everything. Remove yourself from the critical path, and you're going to have much more options also to fine-tune how much you're going to contribute technically. I also listed, don't monopolize technical decisions. Don't make technical decisions alone. Even if you have a very good idea about how you would approach an architecture or some technical question, relying on others, involving others in these decisions is a good practice, because that also removes you from the critical path. Very similar, don't become a team bottleneck neither. Even if you're not on the critical path, you shouldn't be a bottleneck in the team execution. And
no, in fact, your job is to unblock the execution of the team. So the moment you put yourself in the critical path, you're blocking the team, And by the way, then you're also micromanaging people, which people hate, and you probably don't like it. So you don't like it when your manager does it to you. So those are all the no-nos.
Yeah. Okay. And it summarizes well. Like you have to enable the team and not risk blocking them. Let's move on to what are some good activities, because I think this is more interesting. What are technical activities that an engineering manager could find time to do and that can help them?
So the number one thing for me is, since your role is now to be a multiplier and to unblock the team, I think a lot of the activities that you do relate also to process around the team, how the team gets its work done, the process, the tools, and so on. And so where you can apply yourself on a technical level is to be coding, experimenting with ideas, configuring tooling, creating a bot to do this thing. It's not in a critical path. It unblocks a lot of productivity in the team. Automation, diving in on the CI where you see an issue, liaising around the process, which may be quite technical, of how you code is merged, reviewed, etc., etc. And you might be refactoring the code owner's file or whatever it is, right? There are things that you can do that are technical and hands-on, but they multiply the effect on the team, but they are not in the critical path.
I really like that. I really like that because it's actually helping the team aspect of the three main areas that I was talking
Hmm.
about. So arguably these are your
Hmm.
responsibilities. I saw another thing that was working really well in teams is that the manager participates in the on-call rotation.
Hmm.
It has a lot of benefits. Like
Yeah.
it shows that the manager is just one of them and they carry their weight also. But also as a manager, if you are thrown into an incident, you immediately see how
Mm.
good your documentation is, how approachable your systems are, how good your
Yeah.
processes are. And yeah, so it's also very technical to
Run
be able to fix an
books,
incident.
etc. Yeah, because you were like, wow, unless you're deeply knowledgeable about this, you could encounter something on call and you don't know how to fully do it, right? Or another good example about on call that I've seen recently is you go on call and then you realize, wow, there's a lot of alert fatigue here. Like there are so many pager duty alerts
Yes.
and none of them are actually, only this one was important, And why is the team not addressing this? And then you can take action and you can be a multiplier there too. So I think I agree about the on-call. I think it ties to this concept of Gemba and, from Lean, which is you should be spending a significant amount of your time understanding the actual work that people are doing and that you're asking people to do in the team.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I would require all my managers working for me to participate in their teams on co-rotation. In fact, if they are not, that would be a red flag to
Yeah.
examine. Just briefly, I listed pair programming also. I don't want to get too deep on this, but I think it can be a good way to stay technical as a manager. Just make sure you watch out that they don't consider you as a boss who's always right, like be an equal partner.
Yeah. Just on this, I think the other part of pair programming, and it goes back to the point about Gemba, is when you encounter an issue, don't just say, tell me about it. Say, show me, you know.
Mhm.
So you
Nice.
go and say, open up the ID, show me the code. Let's look at it together. There's a non-threatening way just to understand the issue, and then you can represent the issue far better to the rest of the organization.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah. Okay.
So I have a question for you, Peter, right? We've been talking a lot
Yes.
about technical people coming from hands-on coding background and all the rest, but do you think that someone can be an engineering manager who hasn't been a developer? It seems like from everything we're saying that it's a mutually exclusive, even the statement I made earlier, which is that,
Yeah.
people need a manager who understands what they do in their job.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to answer in one word, I would say yes. I want to acknowledge that this is definitely a disadvantage. And actually, I think the key to their success is how much can they live with this disadvantage and work around it. If you're an engineering manager who's coming from like a project manager or product manager or whatever else background, and you're aware that you have this disadvantage that you don't understand the code, but you're not afraid to ask questions. You're not afraid to show vulnerability. You're not afraid to rely on expertise in your teams. I think you can be a very successful manager. With all the nuances we discussed, I still think that the manager has the biggest impact is in those three areas
Mm.
about execution and team and personal development. And sure, they have a big disadvantage if they don't have this technical background, but they can, if they're good managers, they can work around them successfully. And second, everything is learnable. Like if they are curious, if they have a learning mindset, they can pick up enough to get by.
Yeah, I think the way I would see this is you need to offset the lack of a deep technical background by being a truly exceptional people manager with truly exceptional people skills. You also need to learn and understand the domain of both the technical domain and obviously the business domain. And I think the further you go in your career, the less of a hindrance it could be that you've been a hands-on coder, though I think it will follow you all the way as being a recurring challenge. There are many very well-known, very senior leaders out there who weren't coming from a developer background. But I can tell you even today, where I'm CTO of a much bigger team, the fact that I have been a developer and can still write some code is not a bonus. It helps me do my job better, you know?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it helps you do your job better. And I just want to reflect on what you said about as somebody's progressing in their careers, this non-technical lack of developer background is going to keep on following them. I think, especially at this stage, the biggest enemy they have is within themselves. These engineering managers or these managers who don't have this background, they often struggle with a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of lack of self-confidence. And if they can address those issues within themselves, if they can observe themselves and ask for help and work around these disadvantages, they can be super successful. But I often see that this is deeply internalized. If you ask someone on their teams, they would say that, oh yeah, he doesn't have a developer background, but he just understands abstractions and can have great questions and everything. So he's the best manager we ever had. And still, if you ask as the person, often they will say that, yeah, it's holding me back that I don't ever code. So yeah, focus on yourself if you're in this role.
What's interesting is I've seen some amazing people make the leap and helped some amazing people make the leap into managing engineering teams coming from non-engineering background. Obviously, they worked in engineering. I've seen some people do this more from a QA, which is slightly adjacent, depending on what kind of QA you've been doing. I've seen people coming in it from like a project manager, agile coach side. And I'll say, though, that there is a difference between men and women in this. Men tend to be more overconfident of themselves. Women tend to be second guessing their capabilities a bit more, and they feel like they need to know everything inside and out to say they can really do it. And we're all different, but that definitely means that it's more likely that women coming from a non-technical background also have more imposter syndrome, as you say, and they're more impacted by this. Yeah.
This is such a tragedy because oftentimes you see that they are stellar managers and all their self-doubts and everything.
Yeah.
It's really just within their heads. So
yeah, because they bring a dimension of people management, people leadership, soft skills, empathy, and so on. That's important for the organization. So
yeah, and sometimes even hardcore like project management skills. Like I saw a non-technical project manager. She was so efficient in breaking down tasks, like very technical tasks, to small pieces and just having the right isolation points. And yeah. Yeah. So if you're a woman listening to us and you're in an engineering manager role without a developer background, you can be super successful. Like you can totally compensate for that.
Yeah. So one thing I think that's worth talking about here when we talk about engineering managers and coding, Peter, is the pendulum of
thanks for mentioning.
swinging between. And like one thing I see is that managers who insist on coding, they do it because coding, and I miss coding all the time, coding is rewarding. Coding, you are in flow, you have more unbroken concentration, deep work time, you have a feedback loop that's really fairly instant. You know, you write something, you see the results, you can make progress.
That's big.
And with people, it's not the same. It's slower. You know, you have politics, you have frustration. Why can't this person not get it? Why, it's a battle of opinions. It's all these things that kind of really drive you crazy, right? And so some managers definitely default back to coding to escape all of that. I'm just curious your thoughts on that and the career pendulum and all the rest.
Yeah, I think back a long time ago, in order to progress beyond a certain point, you need to start managing people. Like I'm talking about 90s, 2000s. That was the unfortunate case. And then there come the realization that, oh, wait a minute, no, you don't have to. Like there is something like a technical progression. You can be a staff engineer, principal engineer, distinguished fellow, whatever. Like you can grow a lot in purely technical areas without managing people. But still, I think up until now, people think that, okay, so there are these two tracks, but these are very distinct. Like you need to make a choice and just stick with managing people or just being a technical leader. And that's not the case. There are a lot of successful people who are doing a year or 2 or 3 of one and then going back to the other. Sometimes they just try out management for a year or 2 and they realize, oh, actually, this is not for me. And they switch back to staff engineer, principal engineer. But there are others who are keep on swinging like the pendulum, a few years here, a few years there.
Mm.
If you spend some time in the other track, you picked up a lot of very valuable skills that will make you successful in your current role. If you're technical, if you managed people before, that can be a huge help for you in your soft skills, in empathy, in communication, everything. And vice versa. If you're an engineering manager who's been a successful staff engineer, we just talked about being technical, how much that can help you and enable you in your engineering manager role. And one more aspect, the current job market, as we said, everything is changing. Now there is a big need for developers, technical contributors, less need for non-technical engineering managers. If you're swinging back and forth, and if you're keeping some technical leg as an engineering manager, you have some career safety. You're more future-proof in your career.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the best staff engineers that I've worked with was a manager for a long time and then made the switch back. And what I see a lot of where we're hiring for staff engineer right now at Git Guardian, and there have been a number of very exceptional candidates who've interviewed and passed our technical interview, at least with us, who were actually wanting to swing the pendulum back out of management and into technical leadership. So I would say you're spot on when you say that when you're in that sort of manager to senior manager range, and you're also still keeping hands-on skills, you give yourself a lot of career options. And it might be that, you know what, in this kind of current environment, I'd rather be an IC. Or in this company that I'm at, I think actually I prefer to be an IC. Or yeah, there's lots of reasons why people are swinging the pendulum. Frankly, the other reason is there are less manager jobs out there, as we talked about earlier, and people get laid off. And so if you've created the optionality, then you can apply for those senior roles.
Yeah, but this is the point of what we are trying to say, that this is very temporary now, and nobody knows how the job market's going to look like in 2 years, 5 years. And if you're keeping your options open and you're keeping experiences in different areas, then you just naturally are going to have more options. And it's not just external, it's internal. Maybe you think that management is really for you. You love the big impact. You love to get stuff done through others, but you tried for a year or 2 or 3, and there are some layoffs and there are some hard decisions to make and the burnout, and you miss the code. Maybe your preference personally is to just, I don't want to with all these management things, and I just want to sit down with an editor and code.
Yeah, I fully understand that.
All right. Can I have a question? You're actually a CTO now, Git Guardian. Are your managers coding? What does it look like in your company?
Yeah, great question. And so Git Guardian is a highly technical company. You know, our CEO is still coding. And the CEO
Okay. Is it good or bad?
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
He's not coding on the critical path, right? But, you know, the more people who are in senior roles that can code, that can have that much deeper technical understanding, the better for an org. I mean, we're not a huge company. You know, we're a 130 person company. Engineering and product engineering is about half of that. So yeah, and we have small teams, mostly small teams, some a little bit bigger. Most of the very small teams, the engineering managers are hands-on. I would call them hands-on engineering managers. They code part of their time. And depending on the period of the quarter, they have less or more time to do that. If we're going through the planning for the next quarter, setting goals, all of that stuff, more meetings, more things to do. If we're kind of in the thick of reviews, performance reviews, then again, probably less time to code. But yeah, our managers are mostly hands-on. When the teams are bigger, then the managers are hands-off. And that's just because they don't have the time to write code and manage, like we've talked about. The senior managers, the majority of the senior managers that I have that manage managers, 2 out of the 3 are founding engineers, essentially. and they've grown up through the management side. And so they are spending a significant amount of time still, I think, close to the code or in the code.
Well, okay.
Unblocking people, helping people. They're not really coding stuff on the critical path or taking critical path projects, but they definitely are able to unblock their team significantly because of their technical ability and to coach managers and so on. So I see it as extremely valuable. We treat the tech lead role and the hands-on engineering manager role as two separate things, though they can be the same person. But the tech lead within a team is very much of a role or a hat that someone
I
gets.
see.
And yeah, we have some managers who were the tech lead who are in that growth curve of growing someone else to do that and getting that knowledge out of their head and hiring and getting that into other people. So yeah, I think we are definitely on the side of mostly hands-on engineering managers, very hands-on and on the levels above as well. Yeah.
I never thought about this, but actually it makes total sense that, as you mentioned, you have a very technical product. In other companies where the product is not so technical, the engineering managers might do a little bit, instead of a little bit of coding, maybe they do a little bit of product work because the product is more approachable for them. Then I guess what I'm trying to say is that in your company, being a successful engineering manager, you need to understand the product very well. And since this being a very technical product, I guess it would be magnitudes harder for a non-technical engineering manager in your organization.
Yeah, because even for the product managers, they need to have super strong technical background, because essentially what we do is we scan for secrets, API keys, passwords, and things like that in the code base. And we protect organizations from those leaking, and we highlight when they have leaked. And what we're doing now is we're actually scanning where all your secrets are, collecting the metadata about it, and telling you where things are badly configured or where you've got duplicates, and all of these kind of things related to managing the life cycle of secrets. That is highly technical. It requires
your customers are engineering teams and
security and engineering teams, right? And you need to know CI, you need to know what HashiCorp Vault is and how it works, and identity management and all these things. I would say that the product managers even are highly technical. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for this perspective. And I think it's time to summarize, right?
Yeah.
So
where did we land, Peter?
Let me try to make something that doesn't make you want to fight with it.
Good.
So to answer the question, should engineering managers code? I would say with 100% confidence that it depends. I would say that should. Probably not. We can agree that they should be technical, or to include the non-technical EMs, I would say that being technical as an EM is a tremendous advantage compared to non-being technical, and it makes everything you do easier. You can still do it. If you're not technical, it's just going to be harder. In order to stay technical, you should enable your team, multiply your team, and not block them. So choose all the actions you're doing, coding, refactoring, whatever, with this in mind. Like whatever you do, it should enable and multiply the team's output and not block them. Don't be on the critical path, be on the on-call rotation, etc. Yeah, I think that's how I would answer this question.
Yeah, and I think if you're in the audience, you're listening to this can be controversial. I would love to hear people's thoughts. Comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or on the retrospective website. But we would love to hear from you, because as you said, Peter, it depends. It's not, there's no like hard and fast rule on this one. Context matters, you know?
Yeah. But there are a few principles that we strongly believe.
So we don't disagree on the principles.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that was our episode about engineering managers being technical or coding or not. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. And if you liked it, the best you can do for us is just share it with someone who you think would be interested in this content, because that's the biggest help you can do for us to get known.
Yeah, help us grow, feed the algorithms, all that stuff. But thanks, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks to all of our loyal listeners that we see coming back this season, and hope you have a great week.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.